Today we are talking to Sarah-Jane Clarke, or SJC. Sarah-Jane's life represents, I guess, what's on many people's vision boards, their bucket list: success, beautiful homes, a glamorous life, an incredible wardrobe, lots of travel and a gorgeous family. But today we want to talk to Sarah-Jane about life, real life. We want to know what her Sass and Bide journey has taught her about life and, of course, what matters most to her today. So would you please welcome the one and only Sarah-Jane Clarke.
Hi, Shelley.
It's been a while, sister, but it's lovely to see you in the sort of flesh, the virtual flesh.
The virtual flesh. It has been a while, but it's so nice to see your smiling face looking so well.
Oh, yeah, look, I am. I am very well because I am on my own wellness path these days, which I don't know. Well, it has to have been an age thing because I really didn't think about it prior to mid-40s. It didn't occur to me that I was aging at all. I was just going to be eternally youthful. And then it was brought to my attention by the gorgeous Amanda that we did have to start thinking about it, and all those sort of childhood dreams that perhaps it looks like we have fulfilled don't mean much if you don't have your health or your wellness. So here we all are, hey?
Absolutely. We're all on the journey together.
Yeah, it is. And I guess that definition of happiness has changed over time too. But a little bit of history, of course, Sass and Bide kicked off two beautiful friends from Brizzy with a pair of jeans and a dream. You took off overseas, and of course what happened then was a lot of hard work, but of course an explosion, what turned into Sass and Bide, a global brand with a phenomenal reputation. It took you all over the world. You know, we've got so many wonderful stories about Sass and Bide, but it's probably the last 10 years, I guess, that we would really like to focus on today. But let's go right back to the very, very beginning. Sarah-Jane Clarke, as a girl, what were you like? Were you determined? Was fashion something that you always loved?
My mum always said that I had a very clear idea what I wanted to wear. She couldn't dress me. I always knew what I wanted to look like. And from an early age, I always wanted to be a window dresser when I was little. So I guess I did always like styling and putting clothes together and the way fashion can make you feel so good about yourself.
There is a big difference, though, from just dressing well to having a global brand. Where did the business sense come from? If you always loved fashion, did you always have a business mind as well?
Well, I actually studied at QT in Brisbane. I studied a Bachelor of Business and I majored in accountancy because at that time I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I just picked the best subject from school, which happened to be sort of accountancy, maths type of area. So I guess having that business background and then meeting my business partner to be Heidi, we melded both our strengths together and we formed Sass and Bide.
I imagine there were some huge highs. There would have been some quite low lows too, I think, just that plugging through of the business. And I remember very early on in my interest in fashion and television, Sass and Bide was one of those brands that all of us wanted to wear and get our hands on. And I remember coming to your office and being able to look through, you know, your lookbooks and your collections and things. Yes. And that was such a thrill for me to do. But I know that there was a damn lot of work and many, many, many trying hours that went into that business. What were the biggest highs of Sass and Bide for you?
Oh, look, I think in any business, I remember, you know, you have these milestones that you want to hit. And Heidi and I always used to talk about, you know, won't it be amazing when we hit $1 million in sales? And then won't it be amazing when we do our first international show and have our first international stockist? And then wouldn't it be amazing when we open our first ever flagship? So we always had those little milestones in our head, and it was thrilling and amazing to be able to achieve all those things. But as you said, it was fast, it was furious, you know, it was very stressful. It was a lot of hard work. And, you know, I guess, was it the happiest period of my life? probably not, because I sort of lost myself in all the madness. So, you just didn't have time to actually stop and think, how am I feeling today? And, address that, because you're just running on adrenaline. And we ran on adrenaline for about 15, 16 years. So we sold the business after, I think it was in 2014. So, yes, it's a lot of hard work, but gosh, it was so much fun. I'm not, saying poor me, because I have so much to thank that business for, and that time, at that time in my life, it was an incredible ride.
And it is that adrenaline rush that is the only thing really at that point that keeps you going, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, it's the adrenaline. There is just no time to stop, because you just have to keep going. And so many people are relying on you, and you're managing so many people in the business, and I felt probably towards the end, I almost became a bit of a puppet, because I'd be walking in the office and people would say, how are you? I'm like, oh, I'm fantastic. How are you? Mm-hmm. And, you always have to be that upbeat leader. And, and that also takes its toll after a little time.
That's it. And as the leader, I guess, as you say, you couldn't really be any other way, because if you were having a bad day, then imagine what the poor lady at the front counter was thinking, or one of the young girls working in the store. If Sarah-Jane doesn't have it all, then what on earth are we doing here? So that is a big weight to bear.
Yeah, it is. And I think you have to sort of play that game a little bit with your kids, because you want to be the leader and you want to make sure that they're happy, and that, you definitely put them first. And as we did during that time of our lives, we definitely put our business first before our health. Mm-hmm.
But you also had a family at that point, a beautiful partner, 3 gorgeous sons. Is there such a thing as balance in that regard? I mean, the business demanded all of your attention, and yet I imagine, and I know, having kids demands all of your attention. And we say when we have, numerous children, that your heart just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But when you've got a business as well, how much can one person actually take?
Well, yes, it's a good question, Shelley. And I think, I think reflecting back, I could have done so many more things to help myself mentally and physically. But I just, I was young. I was, 23. I was really in my 20s during that wild time. So I just wasn't tapped into all the wellness things available to us now. So yes, I should have been doing yin yoga. I should have probably been meditating. I should have prioritized my, exercise. I should have done a lot of things. But at that age, you can sort of afford to steal a little bit of adrenaline from your body, and then, you can give it back once you hit this late 40s. You can start replenishing it all.
They say the quote, unhappy is he who depends on success to be happy.
Yes.
Do you find any meaning in that?
Well, it's interesting, because I think we often think happiness is success, or is the both run together. But I think it depends on how you measure success and how you measure happiness. I think, as I sort of said before, was that during that time of running Sass and Bide, it was hugely successful. Was I at my most happy? Probably no. But now, I can say now that I'm definitely in a really happy place, because, my life is much calmer. It's more peaceful. I prioritize making sure that my family are all well and stable and, connected. And, I think happiness equaling success equaling happiness is not always the case.
Did the end of Sass and Bide for you and Bide come along at a time when you were ready for it, or was it a bit of a surprise that, you were ready to sell and the opportunity was there, or was it a bit of a shock? Oh my goodness, okay, we're ready to jump off now? Or how did that sort of feel did you know it was time to go when the time was there, or was that a real adjustment of mindset?
Look, I think Heidi and I had been talking about exiting the business for some time. It wasn't just something we woke up with and said, you know what, let's sell it. Today's the day. So it was something that we had decided, okay, in 3 years, I think we'll be ready then. So we decided as a business to start, growing the business in order to sell it. So that was strategically done back of house. And then, it was time because we also had I had 3 young kids. Heidi had 2 young kids. And we just needed to, we just felt like it was just the right time in the fashion cycle because, there's always cycles. You have good years and then you end up having a few softer years. So, and we just didn't have the energy at that time to drag it back through the bottom of the cycle. So we thought, you know what, why we're booming, why the business is going really well, this is the time to sell it. But, that being said, we were definitely sort of the belle of the ball, but at the same time, I guess nothing lasts forever. And it was a beautiful moment in time and something that Heidi and I cherish greatly. And, we made a lot of people happy. Women still talk to me about the pieces that they have from Sass and Bide.
Absolutely. I've got a few key pieces in my wardrobe. I wonder whether there'll be a Sass and Bide vintage range coming out.
Oh, gosh. Well, I think there's a big marketplace for Sass and Bide vintage, so
yes,
Facebook
well,
marketplace.
It's never been the same. We'll all be honest and say that straight to your face. It's never been the same since you ladies left. But
Thank you.
Was there a fair amount of burnout at that time afterwards?
Look, I did miss Sass and Bide probably for about 3 years. I kept checking weekly on the website. I would just get quite upset if they were putting out a colour that I didn't like, and I was like, should I call them and say, no, we don't do those colours? But then there comes a time where you just have to let it go. It's no longer in our control. And it was, then I thought, I have to let that go. And then that way I can also focus on myself. And I definitely, for the next sort of 3 to 4 years after leaving Sass and Bide, I really started my health journey, because that's when I started. Well, that's actually the first time I really stopped and said, how am I feeling? And then I realized that I was so exhausted. I wasn't, eating well. I could be eating better. I self-diagnosed, as we do, myself with adrenal fatigue. And then when I started going down, the internet with all of that, then I realized that I really just had to rest and just calm my whole nervous system down.
Just a quick YMTI break in today's show. Ladies, have you visited youmusttryit.com yet? If not, why not? We have designed this store for us. We've done the research to support your aging well journey, from low-tox makeup, skincare, perfume, supplements, and much, much more. Oh, and we have some lovely gift packs ready to go too for you and your loved ones, just in time for Christmas. After listening to today's episode, go and check us out, youmusttryit.com. All right, now it's back to the show. SJ, you've been really open and honest about your journey and your relationship with alcohol, particularly on your own Instagram.
Yes.
We all know high-pressure jobs, people either do, I guess, self-medicate with alcohol, with drugs, things that can just help them cope at that time. And as you say, just keep that pace going, balancing the business and the family. Can you describe to us what your relationship with alcohol was like? I mean, you sort of have spoken, as I said, openly and honestly about it. Can you share a little bit with us about that, the relationship you had?
Sure. Well, I think we should probably go back to Brisbane. Growing up in Brisbane in the 90s, there was a real binge drinking culture. There was, you'd go out any Friday night and there was 2-for-1s, and it was just about how smashed you could get on a Friday night. Probably not for everyone, but those who like to drink, it was definitely quite easy to get your hands on alcohol. And I sort of quite liked the feeling about what alcohol, how it affected me. As I said, a glass of personality. So for me, it really helped my inhibitions leave. And so all of a sudden I became more confident. I could talk to people. I was, I felt like I had a much better personality when I was drinking. Much to the horror of
that way.
much to the horror of the people around me who had to deal with me. But
you were so much fun.
And that's the thing, like when you get told, oh, you were so much fun. And there is a point where, yes, you can be fun, but it's that hits a point also, and then you just become annoying. And so, look, in my days of Sass and Bide, I definitely used alcohol to as a stress relief, and it also just helped me calm down. So I would use it from when leaving work and then having to go and be a mum. It was just like mummy's juice, just to calm everything down and help me slide from businesswoman into the mother, into that mother role. So look, it wasn't like I was drinking every night. I wasn't one of those people. I was more like, come Friday night or Saturday night, I just had no off switch. So I would, I'd start with one, and I only ever wanted to have like 2 or 3, but then all of a sudden 10 drinks down the track, and I'm like, how did that happen? And so I just knew that I drank differently from everybody else. Well, not everyone else, but a lot of other people who didn't seem to have those issues. They could just flip
and again,
that
in your
switch
20s, it can just be seen as, the party and the fun times and the upper, I guess. And as you say, as we get older, it does become mummy's little helper, and that little afternoon nip to take the edge off, or the glass of wine at dinner. And as you say, I think, as you rightly point out, that binge drinking culture, even at a dinner party now as an adult, and if you're not drinking, it's seen as a little bit strange, or, oh, what are you doing, or what's wrong with you? When did you realise that alcohol was no longer really serving its purpose for you?
Well, I think it really started, it was just these little voices in my head that just started getting louder and louder and louder, and probably definitely sort of towards the end of my 20s, I realised just waking up feeling so dreadful that this really could not be good for my body or my mind. So, missing events, missing meetings, missing, being unreliable, all of those things that happens when you drink too much, and you just can't seem to get yourself out of bed. And I'd lie in bed just wishing the day away. And I was like, okay, this is just, everything about this is wrong, that I am not, that I'm feeling this way, and that I'm not celebrating this wonderful life that I was given. So that was the real stuff. That's when it really started to play on my mind. But it wasn't like one morning I woke up and I said, right, that's it, I'm not going to drink for a year. It did take then probably 5-6 years before I actually made that call to say I'm fed up. I'm going to not drink for 1 year, and that's when that 1 year alcohol free started. Ban the binge.
Wow.
So it's a process and it's a journey.
So it was really 6 years for you where that process, it took its time, and it had to really take seed in your mind that perhaps I can live without this.
I know. Well, look, I guess that's a bit of a slow learner, but I think it's a gradual thing that starts building up. And because I was still going to lots of events with Sass and Bide, and I used alcohol to actually make it through the events and the media meetings and things that I had to do, because I was quite I really had a little bit of social anxiety, and I wasn't great in crowds. So I felt like if I had just a drink, that would just calm my nerves and it would help me just, get the conversation flowing. And, I guess I gave all my power to alcohol. But now, having done that year off alcohol, I know that everything I need is inside me. And I now know that I'm very capable of going anywhere without drinking. And, I guess you just have this nice sense of calmness that I don't care if people like me or not. I don't need to impress anybody anymore.
And there certainly was, as you say, that pressure not to be necessarily the life of the party, but the face of the brand, wasn't there? And I think even we all go out and we have our own brand, whether you're, the accountant, the mum, the wife, the girlfriend, whatever. You go out with that game face on, I like to call it. Whenever I go out in public, I've got my Shelley face on, which is very different to my Shelley face at home. But that's what you think people need or want from you. And
Absolutely.
It's very brave to go, you know what? You can take it or leave it these days.
I definitely took that role on as the party person. Like, I had to get out there. I had to make sure that all my staff were having fun at the Christmas party. After parties, after New York Fashion Week, I was the one there making sure that, I was drinking with all the guests and this and that. So it wasn't until actually my partner said to me, Sarah-Jane, it's not your role to be that person, or it doesn't have to be the role. Like, you don't have to go out and party till 3 a.m. in the morning. Like, just go say hi to everyone and leave at 11. I was like, oh, that's a really foreign concept. But,
am I allowed to do that?
Yes. Am I allowed to do that? And I was just unaware of that role I had assumed without really knowing that I had. It was a funny thing. So I had to actually kill the party girl, which was quite exciting at the same time, because I was just so tired and exhausted and also at the same time hurting my body and mind so much through drinking. So it just all sort of unraveled at the perfect time.
So the liberation that came with Ban the Binge must have been a monumental moment for you.
That year was transformative, because all of a sudden I was living without alcohol in the system, and it was so amazing, the results from a physical aspect, like sleeping through the night, not waking up at 3 o'clock with anxiety or shame, or like, oh my God, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Like, all of a sudden my mind became so peaceful and calm. And then my relationships with my friends and my partner and my children just became so much more deeper and so much more real and connected. And I was proud of myself, and I felt so good, because I was no longer letting myself down. Like, I was sticking to my word, and I felt like it was an empowering year.
Did you say from the beginning, this is going to be a year, or did you say this is going to be a week and I'll see how I go after that? Or was it really for you setting that line in the sand that I can do this? I've got the mental capacity to do this. 365 days, day one, here we go.
Yes. Look, for me, I had to do a year, because I had tried a week, and a week was just, and sometimes I'd do it and sometimes I wouldn't, but I just knew that I had to take a long break from it, because it was playing havoc with my life. And for me, 1 year was just this perfect amount of time, because almost the longer it is, the better, because you don't sort of think about it on a daily basis. Like you don't, when it's a week, every day you're thinking, I have 3 more days to go. But when it's a year, you might get to 6 months and think, okay, I'm halfway, I've got another 6 months. But you don't sort of break it down as much as you do when it's a shorter period. So a year, I don't really know why I chose a year. I just chose a year. And then during that year, I just did so much research as to, what alcohol does to our brain, what it does to our body, the effects that it has. So the more I started reading about alcohol and the science behind it, the more engaged I got with it. And I actually really didn't want to drink in the end. I had actually come out the other side of the drinking habit, and I managed to really look at my triggers and what made me drink and why I wanted to drink. And I just realized that, as you said before, it was taking so much more from me than it was giving me.
What were some of those health benefits that you read about that really went, oh, okay, well, there goes my next 6 months? What were the ones that really stuck in your mind and you thought, I had no idea that was the case, or I didn't want to acknowledge that was the case? Were there some facts that really, really got to you, really hit deep?
Well, I think the sleep was a big one, because I just need 8 to 9 hours sleep to function really well, and I protect my sleep now like it's my number one thing. So the fact that when I started reading about how alcohol affects the sleep and the knock-on effects, because when you wake up tired, then you don't exercise, you don't eat well, and it just creates this sort of downward spiral cycle. So the sleep was a big one. Also, just physically, just the water retention that happens. Like when I during that year, people would say, wow, you look so well and healthy and glowy. Like the skin, from a complete vanity side of things, you just become so much, you really do glow, and you lose all the water retention, and you have you have a special sort of magic that happens when you don't drink. And it's like, also you just appreciate the small things in life. Like you just appreciate, you wake up, you're so much more attuned into the world we live in. Like you're not numbing yourself from pain or life. So you just start really picking up on small things in life, whether it's a beautiful, flower in the garden, or just even it's such little minute things. But when you're not spending all day in bed, you just have so much more time to enjoy life and get into it. And it's the time, it's actually, drinking takes up a lot of time, because normally when you're drinking, you start thinking about drinking around, 4 or 5 o'clock, if that's your time. So that's sort of an hour thinking, what am I going to drink? And then you're drinking for an hour or two. And then if you overdo it, then you sort of drink all night, and then you waste the whole next day with a hangover. So the amount of time that you get back from not drinking too much is really quite addictive.
It's kind of, the sun. It's, the sun.
Yes, you become so efficient as well. You fit so much more in the day.
So this was the way for you to start your wellness journey, and without putting an age on it.
Yes.
How long have you now been on your journey, and what else has come about since this point?
Look, I have always been quite into the wellness side of things. I guess when I left Sass and Bide and then I did my year off, year off alcohol, that really highlighted how amazing one can feel when you take care of yourself. And that sort of feels so good. So then I just started to, what I find is that you start going in one direction, and then like you might go down the keto direction, and then all of a sudden you read about something else that takes you down to how to nourish your kidney, to then, so for me, the journey has been I sort of gathered information from all sorts of places. And then what I've learned now, after probably 15, 20 years of reading so much, is that you've just got to do what feels right for you. Like, there's so much contradicting information out there as well. So, if you want to start your day with a celery juice and that makes you feel great, then you should continue that. But if celery juice makes you feel sick, then obviously it's not for you. So it's just really
no matter how good it is.
no matter how good it is. So I think it's just, doing your reading, just working out how your body is, doing blood tests, making sure that, all your hormones are in check and that all your vitamins are at the right levels. So you've got to look at it very holistically. It's not just food, or it's not just taking vitamins in the morning, or it's exercise, it's sleeping, it's everything.
You've lived a really, really big life, and again, from the outside seems so exciting and glamorous, but having spent so much time living and working overseas, how do you think Aussies are going on the wellness health route? Are we way in front? Are we falling far behind? How do you think we sit as far as looking after ourselves on a world scale?
Well, I don't know the stats exactly to this, but if you go down to Bondi at 5 o'clock in the morning, I think we're doing pretty well. I mean, there are just people swimming, running at that gym, pumping weights. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary, and we live a healthier lifestyle than other countries around the world. And perhaps even, the lockout laws and the fact that we don't really have that many restaurants and bars and pubs open past 10 o'clock really helps us with this healthy way of living.
You're on a whole new path now, aren't you? I mean, you've got your own signature label,
Yes.
SJC, Made for Travel, which is divine, as you know.
Oh, thank you.
How long did that come about, or was that something that had been brewing towards the end of Sass and Bide, or did you really give yourself a sabbatical, just time off, without a pencil in your hand, without designs flying through your mind, or was that something that had sort of been churning as you were maturing?
Well, people often say to me, "What are you doing, going back into fashion?" I'm like, I know, can you believe that I've got myself back into it? But really, the brand came about just melding my two loves, and that's travel and style. And I just thought, I'm just going to make some garments that are the perfect travel companions. So because we all like to feel good when we're traveling. And once again, very similar to how we started Sass and Bide, I wasn't finding the pieces that I wanted in the market. So I thought, I'm just going to make a few. And here I am, 4 years down the track with another fashion brand. But I think it's very different to the Sass and Bide days, and it has as much. It's gentler, slower. I'm not doing it to prove anything to anyone. I'm just my studio is out at Watson's Bay, so it's just a very slower way. But and I'm loving it. It's a lovely creative outlet, and it's wonderful to meet the clients. They come in on Thursday and they chat, and it's wonderful to see people feeling good about themselves.
Can you talk to us a little bit about slow fashion and how we can all do better and be better when it comes to our wardrobe choices, not just for what we love to wear, but for the environment, for the planet?
Well, look, slow fashion, I think it's just being thoughtful about your purchases. If you're going to buy a brand, knowing what they stand for and where they're making, and, are they just dropping 1,000 pieces a week, or are they a little bit more considered in their cycle? I think it's really important to resell the pieces that you're not wearing and put them back out into the world for other people to enjoy. I think that's really a forward way of recycling and making sure that you can, you're selling the pieces that you're not wearing anymore. So then that money you can buy your new piece. And I think less is more these days, buying good quality pieces over junky pieces, buying natural fabrics over synthetics, buying pieces that break down, once they do end up at landfill, which unfortunately many do, making sure that they do break down rather than just, staying in this world forever. So I think it's just educating yourself on your choices.
Is it hard to find your personal style, though? Have you got some tips for that? And again, probably by 40, you probably have a fair idea of what you like and what you're into. But are there any sort of keys on knowing what works best for you or what's going to make you feel good every time you get dressed?
Yeah, I think by the time you hit 40, you pretty much, you really do have a very good idea on what you feel good in, what looks good on you. And I think you've just got to stick with the formula. Like, don't try to, or the sun grabber trend of cutouts around the tummy if you know that your tummy is not your best area. And so I just think it's about knowing the colours that work for you, knowing the shapes that work for you, and just sticking with it. We're normally mostly in flats. Once we've hit 40, right? Over 40, we do like flats.
What happened there?
It's about comfort.
Yes, but I used to think that 5-inch heels were actually comfortable. Call me crazy. I don't know.
I know. I think we just have no time not to be comfortable anymore. It's like, why would I wear heels when I can wear flat and feel so good? So, yeah, I just think wearing what makes you feel good, that's the important thing.
Good lesson. Hey, what makes you happy now, Sarah-Jane?
Well, I think my happiness now comes from connections with people, especially my family, my partner, my children, spending quality time with them. It's really important for me now. Happiness also comes from when I'm feeling good about myself, when I know that, I'm eating well, I'm taking care of myself, I'm exercising, sleeping well. I do wake up with that little extra piece of joy in my life, and that's wonderful. And I think it's also just doing what makes you feel good, a bit like what we were talking about, what makes you feel good. It's also about just saying no to things that you don't want to do, or things, or don't surround yourself with people who have a toxic way about them. Like, just spend your time with people you love, that make you feel good about yourself. I think that's sort of the key now. You really, I know that I've got so much better with just saying, no, do you want to come out to dinner tonight? No, because I just know that I need my 8 hours sleep. I don't want to go. I prefer to sleep.
Don't want to go.
But I will meet you for coffee in the morning if you want. So I'm a big morning coffee, walk, or lunch person. But to get me out to dinner these days is really hard.
I feel your pain. No, I'm also getting very good at saying no, and now I've got to find a way to do that politely so that I don't actually offend anyone. No, because I will, as you say, meet you for coffee in the morning, or we'll go for a walk instead, or come around for lunch. But night times are a no-go for me.
You have to just prioritise what makes you feel good and guard it with all your life, It's like when you're giving up alcohol, I had to actually guard for that whole year. It was my number one sole purpose and reason. If anyone tried to take me off the path, I'd say, no, I can't go to the party. I don't feel strong enough tonight, or, I'm not going out to dinner because that's a trigger for me. I'll drink. So you just have to really guard the important things in life. Like, you just, and be proud of that.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It has been a joy chatting to you. Lovely catching up with you. And without being condescending, really damn proud of what you have achieved in your life to date, and can't wait to see what the next 10, 20, 30 years brings for you and your family. Firstly, I want to say thank you to Sarah-Jane. Thank you for your openness and for being so vulnerable with us. I know very few women of your profile happy to share so openly for the benefit of others. Today's conversation started with us thinking about our vision boards and asking if success equals happiness. And I know we've learned that it doesn't. Logically, we know it, but it can be so easy to forget and spend time wishing for more stuff, more clothes, more travel, a bigger house, the list goes on. Perhaps our vision boards are better filled with things that Sarah-Jane Clarke talked about, like being proud of yourself, taking care of yourself, building connections with loved ones, doing the exercise, eating right, saying no, prioritizing what makes you feel good, and doing something that you love at a slower pace. Sarah-Jane, sharing your story has us thinking and talking about our relationship with alcohol, which matters for aging well. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Please share it with your loved ones. It helps to share our aging well message. Before I go, I have to say, I am loving the off-season. It's very special for us to be able to share people's stories. It's good for the soul. And it also makes you realise that everyone has a story. Everyone has a challenge. And no one has, in inverted commas, the perfect life. Whatever that is, it doesn't exist. I'm Shelley Craft, your host and guide here at the Aging Project. And I'll talk to you next week.